Welcome to True Crime Talks, where we dive into chilling real-life stories of betrayal, obsession, and tragedy. In today's video, we uncover how a simple adventure turned into a deadly nightmare. Emma Sinclair was the kind of coworker who made heads turn. Charismatic, intelligent, and strikingly beautiful, she had an aura that attracted attention wherever she went. Her arrival at Griffin Tech caused a ripple of excitement through the office. Emma wasn't just another new hire, she had an energy about her that was hard to ignore. Her confidence, combined with her natural charm, made her an instant favorite. Even those who initially felt intimidated by her found themselves drawn into her magnetic orbit. Among the many who noticed Emma was Daniel Reed. Daniel had been with the company for over a decade and was known for his steady demeanor and dedication to his work. A married father of two, Daniel's life followed a predictable routine that left little room for surprises. But from the moment he met Emma, something changed. She had a way of making everything seem more exciting, more vibrant. He found himself looking forward to work in a way he hadn't in years. At first, Daniel admired Emma from a distance. Their interactions were limited to polite exchanges and occasional collaboration, but as luck would have it, they were assigned to work together on a high-profile project. This brought them into close proximity, and their professional relationship quickly evolved. Emma's quick wit and adventurous ideas breathed new life into the work, and Daniel found himself thriving under her influence. As they spent more time together, their connection deepened. What started as casual chats over coffee breaks soon turned into longer conversations. Emma would share stories about her travels and her love for exploring the world, while Daniel would talk about his life, carefully omitting details about his family. Emma's adventurous spirit was contagious, and Daniel found himself drawn into her world. The shift didn't go unnoticed. Colleagues began to whisper about their growing closeness. Daniel, who had always been a model employee, started showing subtle changes in behavior. He lingered in the break room longer than usual, laughed a little louder when Emma was around, and seemed distracted in meetings. It wasn't long before the office gossip machine went into overdrive. Some speculated that Daniel was smitten, while others dismissed it as harmless camaraderie. Unaware or perhaps unconcerned about the whispers, Daniel and Emma continued their bond. She invited him to join her for after-work drinks, and he accepted without hesitation. Emma had a way of making him feel alive, as if he were escaping the monotony of his everyday life. The thrill of their growing friendship became a highlight for Daniel, but it was also the beginning of a dangerous path. Emma's allure was undeniable, and Daniel's fascination with her was growing stronger by the day. One Friday afternoon, Emma proposed a hiking trip in the mountains, a suggestion that caught Daniel completely off guard. She framed it as an opportunity to escape the pressures of their project and recharge in nature. For Emma, it was the perfect adventure, spontaneous, invigorating, and just the kind of thing she loved. For Daniel, it was a tempting invitation to step out of his structured, predictable life. He hesitated initially, aware of the risks, but Emma's excitement was contagious. Before he knew it, he agreed, telling himself it was just a casual trip between colleagues. Daniel lied to his wife Claire, telling her it was a work retreat that required his attendance. He packed lightly, bringing just enough for the weekend, and left early Saturday morning. Emma picked him up in her sleek, black SUV, her enthusiasm evident as she chatted about the trails they'd explore. As they drove upstate, the urban skyline gave way to rolling hills and dense forests. Daniel found himself relaxing, lulled by Emma's effortless charisma and the promise of an escape from his ordinary life. The cabin Emma had rented was tucked deep into the woods, secluded and surrounded by nature. It was modest but cozy, with large windows that offered stunning views of the mountains. Daniel was immediately struck by the beauty of the place and the sense of tranquility it offered. Emma wasted no time, urging him to lace up his hiking boots so they could hit the trails before the sun began to set. The hike itself was exhilarating. Emma led the way, navigating the steep, winding paths with ease. She seemed completely at home in the wilderness, her laughter echoing through the trees as she pointed out wildlife and shared stories about her previous adventures. Daniel struggled to keep up, but couldn't deny how alive he felt. It was a stark contrast to his usual weekend routine, and he found himself savoring every moment. As the day wore on, dark clouds began to gather. By the time they returned to the cabin, a storm was brewing. Rain hammered against the windows, and the wind howled through the trees, making it impossible to venture outside. They were forced to stay indoors, the cabin suddenly feeling much smaller. The storm brought an unexpected tension. Daniel began to reflect on his choices, the lies he had told, and the consequences he might face. Emma, seemingly unfazed, poured herself a glass of wine and settled by the fireplace, her calm demeanor only amplifying his inner turmoil. What had started as a carefree adventure now felt fraught with unspoken implications, and Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the weekend would leave an indelible mark on his life. Back in the city, Claire Reed, Daniel's wife, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. For weeks, Daniel had been acting out of character. He was coming home later than usual, distracted, and overly defensive when she asked about his day. The final straw came when she stumbled upon his phone while tidying up and found a series of deleted text messages and a conversation with a contact named E, though the messages were incomplete. What little she saw hinted at something far more personal than work. Claire's mind raced with suspicion. Who was E? Why was Daniel being so secretive? Her husband's sudden interest in hiking, something he'd never shown any passion for before, only deepened her doubts. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire hired a private investigator. She wasn't sure what she hoped to find. Maybe she was being paranoid, but she couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that her marriage was in jeopardy. The investigator worked quickly, piecing together Daniel's recent activities. By Saturday evening, Claire received her first update. Daniel hadn't gone to a work retreat as he claimed. Instead, he was on a weekend getaway with a woman identified as Emma Sinclair, his co-worker. The investigator provided photos of the two hiking together, their body language suggesting a closeness that went far beyond professional boundaries. When Claire saw the photos, her emotions shifted from disbelief to rage. She felt betrayed, humiliated, and determined to confront Daniel the moment he returned. She spent the rest of the weekend alternating between pacing the house and planning what she would say. She couldn't believe the man she had trusted for years could betray her so blatantly. Meanwhile, at the secluded cabin, Daniel and Emma's weekend was unraveling in its own way. On the second night, as the storm raged outside, Emma decided to address the unspoken tension between them. Sitting by the fireplace, she confessed something that left Daniel stunned. She knew about his family all along. Emma admitted she had pursued their connection deliberately, viewing him as someone trapped in a mundane life who needed saving. This revelation hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. What he had seen as a spontaneous and exciting connection now felt calculated and manipulative. Emma's adventurous spirit, which had once seemed so alluring, suddenly appeared reckless and dangerous. He realized he had been pulled into something far more complicated than he had anticipated. As the storm continued outside, Daniel struggled to process what Emma had revealed. The weekend that had once felt like an escape now felt like a trap, and he couldn't help but wonder how much further it would spiral out of control. On Monday morning, Daniel returned home to find Claire waiting for him. Her face was pale but composed, her hands gripping a stack of photographs. Without a word, she handed them to him, her silence more damning than any accusation. Daniel's heart sank as he saw the images of himself and Emma hiking together. His worst fears had materialized, Claire knew. The confrontation was explosive. Claire demanded the truth, and Daniel, unable to lie any longer, confessed to the affair. He admitted to the weekend getaway but insisted it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment fueled by emotions he couldn't explain. He begged for her forgiveness, promising it was over and vowing to make amends. Claire, however, was not ready to forgive. The betrayal cut too deeply, and she told him she needed time to decide the future of their marriage. Meanwhile, Emma was reeling from the fallout of the weekend. She had expected Daniel to come back to her, choosing her over the mundane life she believed he was trapped in. When he stopped responding to her texts and calls, she refused to accept his silence as the end of their connection. Her messages became increasingly erratic, alternating between apologies for pressuring him and demands for him to leave his wife. Daniel, overwhelmed with guilt and fear of losing his family, blocked her number and avoided her entirely. But Emma wasn't one to be ignored. Over the next few days, she escalated her behavior, showing up unannounced at his workplace and leaving notes on his car. The notes were cryptic, a mix of romantic longing and veiled threats. Daniel's colleagues noticed her presence, and the gossip that had simmered quietly before now boiled over. The situation took a darker turn when Emma vanished. On Wednesday morning, she didn't show up for work. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her family couldn't reach her. By Thursday, her absence was reported to the police. Daniel, though he hadn't seen her since their trip, felt a growing sense of dread. Despite their distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that her disappearance might somehow implicate him. As police began their investigation, they questioned everyone who had been in close contact with Emma, including Daniel. His colleagues, already suspicious, mentioned their close relationship and the abrupt change in Daniel's behavior. Though he denied any involvement, he couldn't ignore the mounting pressure. What had begun as an impulsive adventure with Emma was now spiraling into a nightmare, with consequences far more serious than he could have ever anticipated. A week after Emma's disappearance, her body was discovered deep in the woods near the cabin she had rented with Daniel. A pair of hikers stumbled upon the grim scene, her lifeless form partially hidden beneath a dense thicket. Authorities were called immediately, and the area was quickly cordoned off as investigators combed through the evidence. The initial autopsy revealed that Emma had died from blunt force trauma to the head. There were clear signs of a struggle, scratches on her arms and dirt under her nails indicating she had fought for her life. The discovery sent shockwaves through everyone who had known Emma, but for Daniel, it marked the beginning of a nightmare. As the last person confirmed to have been with her, he became the primary suspect. Detectives arrived at his home with a search warrant, and Daniel could do little but watch as they combed through his belongings. In his garage, they found a bloodied hiking boot. An item he hadn't even noticed was missing. When questioned, Daniel insisted he was innocent. He explained that he had left the cabin before Emma and had no knowledge of what had happened to her after their weekend together. However, the discovery of the hiking boot, along with a trail map marked with their route, painted a damning picture. To the detectives, it appeared as though Daniel had planned the entire trip with sinister intentions. The media caught wind of the case, turning Daniel's life into a spectacle. News outlets painted him as a family man who had been drawn into an illicit affair that ended in murder. His colleagues, once merely suspicious, now openly speculated about his guilt. Even Claire, despite her anger over the affair, struggled to reconcile the man she had married with the one being accused of such a heinous act. As the investigation deepened, a shocking twist emerged. Another suspect was identified, the private investigator Claire had hired. Analysis of Emma's phone records revealed that she had received several anonymous calls in the days leading up to her disappearance. Surveillance footage from a gas station near the cabin showed the investigator's car parked nearby the same weekend Emma and Daniel were there. When confronted, the investigator broke down and confessed. He had followed Emma to the cabin, believing she was a threat to Claire's family. He admitted to confronting her in the woods, accusing her of trying to destroy Daniel's life. The argument escalated, and in a fit of rage, he struck her with a rock, killing her instantly. The confession exonerated Daniel but left lasting scars. The adventure that began as a thrilling escape had ended in tragedy, leaving shattered lives in its wake. Claire was left grappling with guilt over her decision to involve the investigator, and Daniel faced the wreckage of his choices. The event served as a haunting reminder of how quickly deception and betrayal can spiral into catastrophe.